Are you tired of self-doubt holding you back? Have you ever wished you could have the confidence to face your fears, go after your wildest dreams, and the tools necessary to live your best life? Hey there, amazing listeners. I'm your host and author of How to Grasp Confidence and Own Your Power. And I've made it my mission to help you break free from self-doubt and embrace confidence. Subscribe now and join us as we unlock the secrets to unshakable self-assurance. Let's dive in. Hello, and thank you for another fantastic episode of Grasp Confidence Podcast. This is episode 62. We are rolling on season 3 with amazing guests and interviews, guys. This is not possible without you and your support and you telling your friends about it and sharing this on social media and leaving reviews. So please continue to keep up that momentum, because that's exactly what this show needs to keep going strong. So for today's episode, I'm interviewing somebody with an incredible story. Her name's Erica Rankin. We met on LinkedIn. She's a personal development expert, and she's really coming out on LinkedIn talking about her failures, talking about failures in business, mistakes, all of these things that we all have, but many people are too afraid to share them with the world and ultimately bring people on the journey with them. So whenever I see somebody very brave and courageous, I always make a point to reach out to them and ask them to be on the show, because I know it will inspire our audience to do bigger and better things and to share their stories and not be afraid. So, Erica, welcome to the show. Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks for reaching out to me and having me on. I'm super excited to be here. But yeah, my name's Erica. I'm the former founder and CEO of a cookie dough company called Brodo. And that was built in Canada. We took it to about 200 stores. And now I am a failed entrepreneur, but we're going to talk about failure today and why that's not a bad thing. I'm also an influencer, a content creator, and a podcaster. I have a podcast called You're Not a Bad Person that I launched about a month ago, all about self-acceptance and personal development. And I'm currently building something new around personal branding. So, yeah.
Ooh, well, we share plenty of synergies there. I got my entrepreneurship career teaching people personal branding. So, it's interesting. I think with so many entrepreneurs, we hear the word personal brand. There's a lot of information out there, Erica, and you know that. What do you pay attention to? What do you ignore? What do you apply? And it's not always easy to know the answers, right? And there's a lot of entrepreneurs listening to this episode right now saying maybe they need to be more visible for their businesses, build a personal brand, if you will, but where do you get started? I would love to know, because you have such an enormous social media following. You're clearly doing something right. I would love to, get some pearls of wisdom from you. What do you think are some really ingredients for a healthy personal brand, especially as a founder and CEO of an entrepreneurial organization?
Yeah, I think, a lot of founders are afraid to put themselves out there, but I think the secret is find the platform that your audience is on. For me, that was LinkedIn, and I started building on there back in 2021, I think. And you just have to be consistent. Just keep posting, keep showing up. And one thing that I love to see more of now on LinkedIn, especially, is people sharing their personal stories. So not only sharing the wins, but humanizing themselves. And I think a personal brand is not just what you do, it's who you are. It encompasses so many parts of you. Like, you can talk about your hobbies and the personal things you do and the things that matter to you. And I think all of that makes you authentic and relatable. So I would say just pick a platform and just start putting stuff out there. And whenever I put something out, I always ask myself, is this going to help someone? Even if one person saw this, could it potentially make a difference? Because I don't think we understand the ability that we have to create impact across the board, whether it's, 1,000 people see it or one person sees it, because it's a ripple effect.
Yes. But, you have to get started. I think we can talk ourselves into an oblivion, and with all the reasons not to start something, that it prevents us from actually taking action. But you hit on a point: consistency. That's another thing that I think a lot of people, may be lacking in their personal brand journey, is just showing up, right? It's not always easy. It can be a lot of work, but you got to do it. Otherwise, memory fades pretty quickly, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then I think people have, I get people who come to me and they're like, what's the ROI if I start posting every day and making content? And I'm like, well, you can't really measure it like that. It's something that is like compounding interest. You have to keep investing time and energy into building it, and then it's going to return tenfold down the line. And the good thing about a personal brand is that it lives on forever. Like, you can't shut down a personal brand. You can close a business, but your personal brand is going to be with you forever, and it's going to evolve as you evolve.
Speaking of which, you mentioned being a failed entrepreneur. The powerful thing about building this personal brand that you're talking about is that even if your business does fail, people still like you and follow you and want to support you. And when you go on to that next venture thing, whatever it is, you're going to have a following. You're going to have an audience. You're going to have people that are kind of warmed up and ready to see what you're offering, don't you think?
Yeah, you're not starting over. And that's the thing that I told myself when I was going through the business and all the problems with the business. And right before shutting it down, I remember sitting with myself and thinking, oh my God, I'm starting over. And that's not true. Like, I've, busted my ass for the past 4 years to build something. I built a network. I built out, I have investors and advisors, and the second time around, you know a lot more and you have a lot more resources. And I have all those resources because I put myself out there and I was building a personal brand. If I wasn't, and I was just kind of on the sidelines and didn't really put myself out there, I don't think it would be, it's not easy, but I wouldn't have as many opportunities right now as I do.
Absolutely. I really do agree with you there. So, we talked about everything that you've got going on right now, and that's a lot, right? But I'm just curious, you said you started LinkedIn heavily in 2021. What was it like before then? I would love to know. You seem so self-assured and confident right now. I would love to know, take us, back a little bit. Take us back to a time when things were a little different for you, Erica.
Yeah, I guess you mean like the start of my entrepreneurial journey, or like before getting on LinkedIn, or
yeah, maybe the start of your entrepreneurship journey. What was that like?
Sure. So it was 2018. So 2018 is where it all started. The seed was planted. I was working a regular 9-to-5 job. I was listening to entrepreneurship podcasts at my desk, and I really didn't enjoy my job. So I was trying to distract myself with all different things. And that's when I got exposed to entrepreneurship, was this podcast. And at the time I was also prepping for a bodybuilding competition, and I fell in love with baking and recreating a lot of my favorite sweets, because obviously you can't eat a lot of sweets when you're prepping for a bodybuilding show. So that was something that I just enjoyed. And I competed, I did my shows, and I decided to just quit my job and go to Southeast Asia for 3 months. So I booked a trip and I thought, okay, I don't really know what I'm doing with my life. I don't like my job, and I'm kind of curious about this entrepreneurship thing. So let's just book a trip and maybe I'll get clarity around what I want to do with my life. And on that trip, I stumbled, and I don't know, I call it like, it was like serendipitous moments. I just kept running into entrepreneurs that had all these really cool stories. I met a guy who was a former lawyer who actually was also from the place that I was from, like near Toronto. And he decided to leave his practice and start building these mansions in Thailand, and had no experience. And I thought, oh my gosh, this guy's doing this and he has no experience. And he just did it. Like you figured it out. So, and then I met a guy who had a moving company, who was a high school dropout. I just kept running into all these people. And I realized, okay, to be an entrepreneur, you don't need to have the credentials. Like you don't need to have doors open for you. Like you build the doors and you open them yourself. You just have to want to enough. Right. So I got home and I sat with my thoughts and I decided to launch a cookie dough business. And the cookie dough business I launched was actually cookie dough that I used to make for myself back in my bodybuilding days. So it was higher in protein, lower in sugar, cleaner ingredients. And I Googled business workshop near me. I drove out to the closest business resource center, learned how to write a business plan. And then that's where it all kind of started. That was in 2019. Yeah.
Wow. And how old were you at this time?
I was 23.
Wow, that's amazing. So at this young age, you're taking these big risks. And you know what? I love that because in my opinion, when you're young, you should be taking, a lot of the risks, especially in entrepreneurship, to test the waters, to try things. Because there is no such thing as failure. And if we don't have these failures, we don't have lessons. And if we don't have lessons, we don't have growth. And that's why I like your tie-in with the personal development and growth in with this, because it's proof of concept that you have to have failure in order for you to have to achieve success at some point. I do believe that. And, we look at it sometimes as human beings, and it's totally normal to think it's the end of our world, our life's over, what's next, and to internalize that as negative things. But the reality is that without those lessons, we might not be equipped for a higher purpose, a higher calling. And your podcast show, You're Not a Bad Person, has to tie into that as well, I would think, because it's really easy for us to internalize these failures and to think we're bad people. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I 100% agree. My definition of failure has evolved a lot over the past 10 months. I shut down my business in January. I filed for bankruptcy, which is something that I never thought I would share publicly, or I thought about it and I'm like, okay, I'll share this when I get my life back together and be like, oh yeah, by the way, I filed bankruptcy, but I'm good now. And that's not being authentic. That's not showing up fully. I made a promise to myself to always be honest and just show the realities of entrepreneurship. And, the reality is that a lot of us fail. All of us fail. And some of the most successful entrepreneurs like Henry Ford Motors, he filed for bankruptcy. Walt Disney filed for bankruptcy. I don't think people realize that failure is just a part of the puzzle that makes up a bigger picture. And I also think that someone named Colin O'Brady said, you can't experience the 10 out of 10 days without the 1 out of 10 days. And you also don't really know what a 10 out of 10 day feels like if you haven't had a 1 out of 10 day. How would you know what a good day was if you didn't have the bad ones? It just makes you so grateful for them and appreciate them. So the podcast is all about, accepting yourself and your flaws and just embracing every part of you and understanding that your past doesn't define you. Your past doesn't discredit your success, and it doesn't disqualify you from future opportunities. Because a lot of people, they get in their heads and they prevent themselves from doing so many things because of fear or judgment or things that they may have done in the past. And it's okay to have those fears, but you can't let them take over and drive the car. You need to drive the car.
Absolutely. It's so easy to let fear dictate our next move, right? And, you had a post yesterday about faith. And I think that, in this journey of entrepreneurship, your faith will get tested.
Yeah.
Maybe more than almost anything else, right? And for anybody who owns a company, you can relate to exactly what I said. And once you start losing the faith, you start losing the gratitude. Once you start losing the gratitude, your actions start to follow. Once your actions start to follow, you kind of create this pattern of behaviors. Maybe it's a set of habits that are not indicative of growth. And it starts with that, subtlety of a loss of faith sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's even just a loss of faith in yourself and what you're capable of. What do you think, Erica? I would love to hear your thoughts on that. How does faith play a role in this for you?
I honestly, gosh, if I didn't have faith as an entrepreneur, I don't think I would be sitting here. I believe that you need to have some sort of higher power that you look to just, hope that things play out in your favor on those hard days. Like you need to hold on to something and understand that there's a bigger picture. And for the first couple of years of entrepreneurship, I didn't really have faith. I was just so fixated on the end goal, and I really didn't take the time I didn't journal. I wasn't really grateful, or I didn't do gratitude exercises. And I think when the days got really, really hard, the days ran me. Like I didn't run the day, and I wouldn't get out of bed. Sometimes I was dealing with eating disorders and all this other stuff. And I think for me, like I turned to faith when I got to those really, really, really dark times, and that pulled me out. Like God did take me out of all of those situations and helped me with all of the things that I was struggling with. But definitely when you do have hard days, you're questioning everything. And sometimes you do question God, and you do question, like, why is this happening? I've done everything. I don't understand. And it is a slippery slope. And I did go down that slippery slope this year when I did file for bankruptcy, and I did lose sight of everything and kind of let the hard days win again. But I found my way back to, okay, like there's a bigger picture. Everything's happening for a reason. And you said this earlier, which I love, is you said, like, sometimes you have a higher calling. And I don't think my calling was building a cookie dough empire, like as much as I wanted it to be. Like looking back, I'm like, it was great. I learned so much, and I'm so grateful for everything that business taught me. But I think my mission is to like help people step into their authentic selves. Like I'm here to show people that they can be themselves, and people will love them for them being themselves. And that feels like a heck yes to me. Everything else that I did these past few years, like managing supply chain, putting in purchase orders, pitching retail buyers, that was a heck no. And I just kept pushing myself to do it because I felt like I had to, but it was so out of alignment. But I guess if anyone's listening to this, just know that if you're on a path, don't feel obligated to stay on the path. If your dream's no longer your dream, you don't have to stay in it. You can pursue a new dream.
Everyone needs to hear that, regardless of if you own a company or you work for somebody else, right? The thing of it is, I do believe that. And I've seen it with my own self, with my own businesses, that, if I fail, what I've realized is that it was because I was being called for something higher, because I didn't ask for more sometimes, right? Sometimes you fail because you simply you're not asking for what you're truly worth. So some unseen force sometimes prevents you from a true failure. And, I've seen it. There was a time, Erica, this was 2022. I had just left my corporate job, and another company was going to hire me. At this time, I was deep steeps of depression, right? Questioning my worth, questioning why I'm even here, if I even had a purpose at all. And as I'm in this state, this other company is trying to convince me to move, right? Give me another job. And it sounded great. It's 30% more than I was making now. Lots of really cool benefits. Keys to the building, as they say. But some unknown force kept me from pursuing that job. It was so weird. So I met with a builder a couple of times it's a completely different state. I would have had to move. And there was just how in this period of time, no properties available that I liked at all in the entire state, it seemed. And then I kept working with this builder to build quote unquote dream house, right? Because I said, if I'm going to move several states away, I'm going to like where I am. Every single time before I would give them a deposit, they would raise their prices. And then finally it was out of my range. And I thought I was a failure because I had been given this job and I still couldn't get to that next step. Something was preventing it. I'm convinced that if I would have not failed, if I would have kept resisting and holding on to that idea, that I would be in a worse state mentally. And I may not be having this conversation with you right now. Mm-hmm. Do you relate to that? Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, it's like the whole rejection is protection or rejection is redirection or whatever, right? Like I completely agree. I look back on the past few years and I look at all of the things that didn't work out that seemed like the end of the world. And now I'm like, oh my God, thank God that didn't work out. There was a reason why that didn't work out. It would have been a nightmare had it worked out the way that I wanted it to. So that's what I think, like when all these things are happening to us, well, yeah, they're not happening to us, they're happening for us, right? I always, it's hard sometimes in the moment you get upset and you're like, gosh, like, why isn't this working? I want this to work. I'm trying to make everything happen and it's just not happening. And I think, there's something outside of us that is controlling things and we just need to let go and let it happen, right? Because we can't see the full picture. Like if you were to ask me 4 years ago that I'd be sitting here in a new place in a studio with a podcast, I'd be like, oh, no way. There's no way. Like, right? No way. Like I remember my first podcast that I ever went on, like even doing this, like with you, I would not eat the whole day and I would be shaking and I would have like a note open like on the side with like all my things that I would say and I'd make them send the questions beforehand. Like I was just a ball of anxiety and now I'm here and it's like, oh wow, okay. Like you just do something more and more and you get more comfortable with it and things just unfold in a way that you never expect them to, right?
Yes. And that goes back to our faith conversation, right? Mm-hmm. You have to trust. Mm-hmm. That's one of the hardest things I think for any human being is just trusting in the unknown. But one thing I have learned in life is, your feelings change. The weather changes. Other people change. Change is inevitable. Change happens. You sometimes just have to lean into it, trust it, have faith, either in yourself, a higher power, both, to know that you're going on the right path. Or if you're not, have the faith to be able to say, you know what, it's okay. I'm going to recenter and go back on that road of purpose. Mm-hmm. But I think of purpose as a road. I think it's something that is laid down. Sometimes there's just like a normal road, there's going to be obstructions in the road, right? That we're going to have to swerve around. Sometimes we may veer off the road and go down a dirt road and a different path, but It's something we can always get back onto and it never truly goes away. It's sometimes just a matter of getting back on the right track, don't you think?
Yeah, I love the analogy. It's so true. There's going to be obstacles and there's going to be big shiny objects that are distracting and you're going to be like, wow, that looks really cool. And you're going to go drive over there and you'll be like, wow, that actually looked better from far away. Like that. I think that sometimes, is another thing. I think people need to have, they need to move with intention. Like you have to be very specific with what you want or what your purpose is. Purpose can be general. Like my purpose, I just want to serve others and help others accept themselves. And I think the destination can remain consistent, but the directions can change, like you said, right? Like I had the cookie dough company and I wanted to contribute to the world and make the world a healthier, better place. And I'm still kind of doing that just with people and not cookie dough, not a product. So the path can change for sure.
I love that. Absolutely. And nothing about any of these failures dilutes your purpose, right? Dilutes any potential that you have or anyone else has. And ultimately, I want people that are listening to this right now to walk away with that because we can really hold regret and it eats away at us. But a friend of mine said recently in a podcast that no amount of regret can change the past. no amount of regret can change the past. Any amount of gratitude can change the present. That was Kevin Monroe. He's like a world's gratitude coach and consultant. And he said that on a recent podcast, and it really stuck with me because any amount of gratitude can change the present. So if anybody's listening right now going through a failure, what about this failure that you're going through can you have gratitude for? If you start to reframe everything as what can I be grateful for, whether that's in the past, maybe it's a childhood trauma, maybe it's an abuse situation, maybe it's a very traumatic thing, that an adversity that we went through. Where's the gratitude in all of these things that we go through in our lives? And I think when we start to look for the gratitude, we can only find more of it. I would love to hear, a little bit about how that maybe is an anchor for you as well in your life.
Yeah, if I'm not having a good day, like I ask myself two things. I'm like, okay, when was the last time I went outside, and what have I done gratitude exercises? Because it's so easy to fixate on the things that we don't have and all the things that are going wrong and look at the glass as half empty. But when you're looking at it that way, you're not going to be gifted with more things in your life. Like, that's just how the world works. If you're always bitter and down on yourself and playing victim, like, you're just going to heighten that. It's not going to bring in more opportunities for you. So I think you have to hold space for gratitude for all the things that you currently do have, and more is going to come to you. That's just how it works. That's how energy works. And for me, one big thing that I look at now, and I recognize this when I started to share my failures more publicly online, specifically the bankruptcy thing, we're most qualified to help the person we used to be. So when I shared my story out there, while it was very uncomfortable, I realized, okay, there's going to be one or two people that see this that are going to be like, okay, I'm going through this and I'm not alone on this. And that's like very comforting, and I can go to her for help. And I kid you not, I've probably had 20 different conversations about bankruptcy since I posted that like earlier this year. I'm the person that people message on LinkedIn about bankruptcy. So, I have mentors and friends and stuff, and they're like, yeah, like I've encountered someone who's going down the same road, and I sent them your name. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. Like, I want to be a safe space for them, because there's still such a stigma attached to failure, attached to bankruptcy, attached to all these things. And people often aren't comfortable enough to share it. And even a lot of the businesses that I looked up to in the past, or products that I bought that have just randomly disappeared, I realized, oh, they failed, but they failed secretly. Like, they just disappeared, and no one really knew what happened to them. And I'm like, why didn't they share it? And it's something that people aren't comfortable doing. And even another one of my friends, he had a cheese company. He messaged me because I was wondering what was happening to his business. He's like, yeah, we actually shut down the business a year ago, and he didn't tell anyone. So you don't know what goes on behind closed doors. And a lot of people are going through the same hardships. They just aren't vocal about it. So if I can be like a small voice, on the internet, and just show people that, okay, like, it's normal. You have to fail. You have to have those hard days. And there's going to be things that you go through that are not fun, but it's all a part of it, right?
That's right. Exactly. Oh, I love that. So this, podcast is called Grasp Confidence. And the reason it's GRASP stands for the acronym Gratitude, Responsibility, Action, Sight, Purpose. And during this entire episode, we talked about all of those things in a different way through your perspective. The gratitude to understand and look back and be reflective of the lessons. Where can you find the good in something? The responsibility to have an ownership mindset, and regardless of our failures, to keep overcoming, right? That's pretty powerful, and to take ownership of our decisions and actions. And then, of course, we have action, that when we have an idea, something that we feel, compelled to do, you got to take action on it. You can't sit around and think about it all day. You have to take action. And then we have sight, we have a vision, right? Maybe we're an entrepreneur and we're creating a vision board of this company that we want to create and a product or service that we want to produce. And then a purpose, is it in line with the greatest good of us and the greatest good of the collective in general? I think if we do those 5 steps as an entrepreneur, even as a corporate person, right? Wouldn't we all live a better, more fulfilled, happier life? I would love to hear your final thoughts on that and what you think that means to you.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And this is something that I still am learning. So I had my first business and I didn't really know anything about gratitude or personal development, or I just was someone who was passionate about a product and wanted to bring it to the world. And I think as time has evolved and I've grown and my business has grown, like I've grown as a person, and there are so many parts of me that, like, I guess I have done a lot of those things so subconsciously or without even realizing it. But I think the game changer for me was this year doing it more aware and more, I guess, intentionally, like journaling, like every morning waking up and being like, okay, these are the 5 things that I'm grateful for, and making an effort to put myself out there and do the things to build confidence. Because I used to think that confidence was a skill, or not a skill, something you were born with. I didn't know it was a skill. And when I realized that last year, I felt like my whole life had been a lie, because I just thought I just wasn't born as a confident person. And I think many of us think that as well.
Absolutely. It can be developed, right?
Mm-hmm.
It absolutely can be developed. I think within us all exists that seed of confidence and potential. It's a spark, A young child, when they're learning how to walk, doesn't fall and assume walking's not for them and they'll never do it again.
So true.
They develop it, and it increases or decreases based on the things we tell ourselves and the things we hear from our environment. And this is why it's so important, especially as entrepreneurs, that we tell ourselves a narrative that is indicative of growth. And then we hang around people that are supportive of that growth, that will love us and support us, even if we, may outgrow them. That's love. Love is not keeping people where they belong or where you think they should stay. Love is supporting someone on a path, right? And I think that's important too. So be conscious of your inner environment. I always say to my clients, your inner environment, the things we tell ourselves, and your outer environment, those 2 things have to be positive in order for you to continue to grow and feel supported. So I love that. Very powerful conversation, Erica. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you for everything that you're doing and the work that you're putting out there. I think you're inspiring a lot more people than maybe you even realize, right? And we never know who's watching, right? So when you posted, I think I'd been following you for a while, but it wasn't until you posted about your failure in business that I reached out to you, because I just really knew I had to hear about it. But this is the power of, like you said, kind of building in public and letting people in on what's going on, because this is where you find your true supporters. So wonderful. Yeah. Wow. I loved it. Thank you, Erica. And again, thank you so much for everyone who tuned in today for this episode of Grasp Confidence. Don't forget to leave a review and let us know what you liked about Erica's conversation, so we can maybe get her back on again, because I know all of these guests have so much more to say than we can even say in one episode. But guys, without you, the support would not be possible. So thank you so much, and we will catch you on the next episode. Take care. And that's a wrap for this episode of Grasp Confidence. Thank you for joining me today and investing in yourself. Remember, building confidence is an ongoing journey, and each step you take brings you closer to the empowered, fearless version of yourself that you were born to be. Don't forget to visit my website, follow me on social media, and purchase my book, which is available on Amazon. Thank you for listening. We will see you on the next episode. Stay confident.